Broncos Preseason Week 2 right around the corner. Welcome into our official preview here, because everyone knows preseason football is the most important type of football. Matthew Peterson here on the Broncos Breakdown. Now, quick disclaimer here. Have to go out of town this weekend for a wedding. So I'm filming this a little bit ahead of time. So if there's like a change or two to some of the things I say, just don't roast me in the comment section. That's the background story. Now, one quick storyline I just want to get out of the way before we check out 5 things I've got laid out to watch for in the Broncos-Bills preseason matchup from Buffalo. Von Miller, for the first time in his NFL career, he will play. Remains to be seen if he actually does play against the Broncos. So that will definitely just be a pretty emotional scene, I'm guessing, for Von, just to line up against the Broncos. To see Broncos uniforms as the enemy for the first time, that's got to feel weird. But let's show the guy some love, because he is a Broncos legend. He's going to go down into every single record book ever. Spam 58, not his New Jersey number. That's blasphemy stuff right there. Spam his real number, 58, down in the comments to show Von Miller some love from Broncos country. All right, first thing I am watching for in this game. Joe Schobert versus Alex Singleton. We've got an inside linebacker battle here for the co-starter alongside Josie Jewell until Jonas Griffith returns from that dislocated left elbow injury. He's supposed to come around week 1-ish, but it's going to be a fun battle between Schobert and Singleton. Now, we have a little bit of a guideline or baseline here in this battle for this inside linebacker job, which is Nathaniel Hackett doesn't like to play much of his starters. So if we see one guy not play at all, that's definitely a good sign of that's probably the starter right there. If Nathaniel Hackett's got his mind made up of, like, whether it's Schobert or Singleton, hey, we've seen everything we need to see from you. We're not going to risk any kind of injury. And we'll look at Hackett and his sort of his method and his reasoning behind his approach to preseason later on in the video. But if these two guys do play, it'll be a fun battle to watch to see who's the starter until Griffith returns, because teams love to do this, by the way. Like, quick sidebar, when players get injured in preseason, they immediately go, we're hopeful they'll be ready to go week 1. Because week 1 sounds so far away, you're like, they've got to be ready by then. Everyone gets healthier quicker in the preseason. That's how your body works. Well, not really, but we like to believe so at least. So we will see when Griffith returns, but there is a starting job up for grabs right now, which really can't be said for anywhere else except for the other defensive end position on this team. Now, before we check out the other things to watch for, able to pull some pretty cool analytics here on the YouTube side of things, and over half of you guys watching are not subscribed. What are we doing? Let's change that right now. If you are watching today's video and you have not clicked on that sub button, make sure you go ahead and do so and get locked in for the best Broncos YouTube coverage out there. Next thing I'm watching for, hopefully a Michael Ojemudia bounce back game. I would love to see number 13 look like what I thought was one of the better players back in 2020 in terms of, like, not really being on the radar so much going into the season. Now, in preseason week 1 against the Cowboys, he was flagged for pass interference. He gave up an 18-yard completion. The thing with preseason is you only get so many snaps. So you got to make the most of your opportunity. You don't have quarters and time to redeem yourself. So unfortunately for Ojemudia, the vision or sort of the takeaway we have from the first game was he didn't play well. He never really had a chance to redeem himself all that much. Hopefully that can change against the Bills, because he is right there, I would say, on the cusp of not making this roster. I think he's not a roster lock, but he's as almost close as you can get to in terms of a roster bubble guy. So he's got to just cement himself and put any sort of, like, fear of that to the side here. Now, we love to play this game here at Chat Sports. Who you got? Broncos or Bills? I know one of the viewers here on the channel, All Out Broncos, one of the bigger supporters we have, diehard Broncos fan who lives in Buffalo. Hope you enjoy the game. Hope you're still typing DEN for the Broncos, because even in preseason football, it doesn't really matter, but rather win than not, right? Because if you win in preseason, it feels like a real win. If you lose in preseason, it's preseason. Who gives a shit? All right, next thing I'm watching for here. Stronger run blocking. So the Cowboys had 18 penalties in week 1 of the preseason, which I think covered up some actually sloppy-ish play on the Broncos side of things. Like, they kind of got away with making a handful of mistakes and whatnot because every time Denver screwed up, Dallas screwed up even more, and there was a flag on the field here. The run game was not very impressive last week, okay? Stevie Scott III led the brigade with 6 carries for 20 yards. The offensive line was kind of getting beat in the trenches. They just kept getting bailed out, whether it was a holding on the offensive line for Dallas or a defensive pass interference for the Cowboys that covered up a bad throw and whatnot. I mean, I'm not saying that the Broncos had a bad game. I'm just saying that they made mistakes that were swept under the rug because of what Dallas was doing, and they were just like a head case. It was just the most lack of discipline I've ever seen from a team in preseason. Now, when it comes to run game here, that's a pretty big emphatic like preseason rant right there. But again, none of these guys on screen except for maybe Calvin Anderson are going to be playing in week 2 of the preseason. So like, sure, if you are upset with Zach Johnson for not having a good game or Quinn Bailey, I get that, or Casey Tucker. Now I'm just name dropping, but none of those guys are going to play anyway in the regular season, knock on wood. So you don't actually have a huge takeaway of like, we got to improve this run game. Like, yes, you want to look good, you want to look competent, but also none of the starters are out there. So you really don't have a clear-cut takeaway in terms of like a sign of like, is this going to be a problem throughout the season? This run game has no traction whatsoever. Next thing I'm watching for, just kind of a positive note here, I'm sitting down and I'm putting on the Baron Browning show because it is fun to watch. 3rd-round pick out of Ohio State last year. They put him at inside linebacker, and then they moved him to outside linebacker this offseason. A move I kind of questioned to start, but now I see why they did it because Baron Browning was great. I remember rewatching the game. He just bursted off the edge, spin move on the inside, got to the ball carrier. It was fun to see, right? And he is moving himself up this roster, which is this depth chart, which is important to note because the 2 starters, Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb, we all know the story. They're not very reliable at playing the whole season. So a good chance whoever that 3rd edge rusher is going to have some pretty big starts. Whether it's the rookie, whether it's Malik Reed, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning is definitely putting himself in a good position to be that next guy off the bench for obvious passing situations, 3rd and long. Hackett's on the sideline going, I want another edge rusher. Get me 56 out there. The Baron Browning show, ladies and gentlemen. All right, final thing I'm watching for. Nathaniel Hackett just going to sit everyone. You betcha. That has just been his MO so far. And we love to see this. I mean, this is like porn for Chris Collinsworth, okay? The coaching tree, right? Of, hey, if this coach came from this coach, came to this coach, they love to follow their philosophies, all right? And Hackett's coaching tree goes back to Sean McVay, who kind of instilled this idea of shut it down, John Taffer style. No one who's important is even going to put pads on to risk running onto the field rogue and playing one snap. All right, Zach Stevens, who does a phenomenal job of covering the team, tweeting out the other day that Nathaniel Hackett on playing starters in the preseason. I don't like the preseason. In the end, we want to be smart with the guys. Now, Hackett spoke about his sort of philosophy when it comes to preseason, and I found this quote to be rather interesting. I think it's really opened my eyes with what we did in Green Bay. A lot of that stuff, knowing Sean and knowing Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur, and seeing how they did it, I think it really opened my eyes because of how healthy we were able to be. So the takeaway here is, Broncos country, you will have to wait until Monday night, September 12th, to see anyone who you probably recognize if you're just a casual fan of the team and you don't dived into the nitty-gritty of the depth chart here, because Sean McVay, before he got to the Rams, they just lost. He gets to L.A. What does he do first? Well, preseason comes around first, and he says, oh, we're paying you, and you a lot of money? Yeah, don't go anywhere near the field in preseason. We're not risking an injury. And since then, the Rams have been pretty successful. And then what do you do? His protege, Matt LaFleur, who goes to Green Bay to be the head coach and coaches above Nathaniel Hackett, also says, yeah, we pay you lots of money, you go nowhere near the field. Not happening in preseason. So this is a trend we have seen kind of catch fire across the NFL. It's always been a thing if you don't play the starters that much. But this is a kind of a new level of you're not playing a single snap of the preseason. So if you're looking for Russell Wilson in week 2, you're probably not going to see it. The other reason why, I just want to quickly plug, so then why is preseason even a thing here? Because preseason is not for the coaches, for the GM, all right? I think when training camp opens up, the GM has 56 to 57 guys they are looking at. They know everyone else is not going to make this roster. There are a couple guys who are right on the bubble that they need to see in training camp and preseason. Preseason is for the owners because they get to pay players next to nothing for these preseason games. And you know what? They still get to put butts in seats. Season ticket holders have to pay for the games. There's TV deals up for grabs and whatnot. So the owners get to stuff their pockets while paying players pretty much next to nothing. They get a couple $100s a game. It's not big money here. And all of a sudden, there's all this ticket, concession, TV revenue coming their way. Now, before we get on out of here, if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate everyone for watching all the way through. You are what to call here at Chat Sports a real one. So drop a let's ride if you've made it this far in the video, because Broncos country, let's ride.